So I'm joined now by Bryan Gunn, former Norwich, Aberdeen goalkeeper. How are you today, Bryan?
Yes, very good. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of my former glories at Aberdeen and Norwich City. They keep coming back, especially with the newfound Twitter. Seems to be a lot of fans out there that have great memories of those eras, and it's nice to be part of two successful clubs.
And we haven't heard much of you since you were sacked by Norwich as manager. What are you doing at the moment?
Well, for the last 2.5 years I've been working with a company called ex Sports and Entertainment. We're a management company who look after football players and also people in entertainment. And we're based in offices in Lymm, in Cheshire. And I look after the youth department in terms of scouting the top young talent in the country. And then recommending them to the agents that work for S, like Paul Stretford and Kenneth Shepherd, and hopefully we can be a part of their future and help them recommend the pathway to success. Really, it's a very interesting job. It's kept me involved with football. I watch probably 6 to 8 games a week. Whether there's a football match, I'll be standing on the side of the pitch in the hope of, I think the ultimate job within this company is we've got players like Wayne Rooney, Tim Krul, Kasper Schmeichel, James Perch, and my job is to go out and find the next players like this. It might be very difficult to find another Wayne Rooney, but you've got to keep working and keep focused and hope that you can find players that will eventually get to the level of playing in the Premiership.
And you talked about the notable players that you've got with the agency. Are there any that, like you've brought through, that are progressing well that could end up being in that position?
Well, we've in the last couple of years we've signed. My son Angus Gunn is one of the players that's attached to the agency. He's a goalkeeper at Manchester City and developing very well. We've got another young player called Cameron Brannigan, who's just signed a professional contract at Liverpool. And we took Cameron on at the age of 15, and we started watching him when he was 15, and then he's progressed through the youth teams at Liverpool, and now he found himself more recently on the bench for the first team when they played in the FA Cup recently. So these are the types of players and the standard of players that we're looking at, and it's only a matter of time before these managers will need to play young English players, young British players in their squads, and hopefully we're out there spotting the best of the talent coming through.
Okay, so if we go to before your career started, how did you first get into football?
Well, I was brought up on a farmyard in the far north of Scotland in a place called Thurso, and the farmhands used to play football and kick a ball about during the tea breaks and their lunch breaks. So when I was a very young boy, probably 3, 4, before I actually went to school, I used to go out and kick a ball with these guys and dive about, in the cowpats and different things like that. And it wasn't really until I went to school in a place called Invergordon that we started doing football training, and it was ironic that my dad was actually the coach of the team as well. He helped the headmaster take the team, and unfortunately there was another boy who was a very good goalkeeper who was older than me, so he was the first choice goalkeeper. But if he was unavailable, I seemed to get in there. But that was quite tricky, having your dad as manager sometimes, to put an extra bit of pressure on you.
Okay, and were you always a goalkeeper?
I'm not always a goalkeeper. Obviously, when I didn't play in goals for that team, I was always sort of an outfield player. When I went to the secondary school, I played in a number of positions for the school teams. I played at centre half, played at centre forward, played in goals. So it just gave me a good opportunity to work on fitness and play different positions. But it was quite difficult at the end of a weekend, because normally we play a game on a Friday night, a game on a Saturday morning, a game in the afternoon on a Saturday, and then another game on Sunday. So by the time Sunday night came, it was very fatigued and cramped, and it was a much needed hot bath before going back to school on the Monday.
I saw a quote that Sir Alex Ferguson said, and talking about you played in a reserve match outfield once and scored.
I did, yeah, in the build-up to, I think it was one of the Scottish Cup finals. Sir Alex rested a lot of players from the first team, so a lot of the young reserve players played in the first team. I actually played for the reserves that day at centre-half against St Mirren, and remember a cross coming in and went up for a header and put it in the top corner and went off on a victory run. There was only a couple of hundred people at Pittodrie that day, but Alex Ferguson was one of them, and he never forgets that. He always gives me a mention, sometimes winding me up saying I was a better outfield player than I was a goalkeeper, but I'm sure he doesn't mean that. It was good fun to play in. Actually, I came off the pitch that day with 6 stitches in my ankle, so it was probably not my most memorable day, but it was great fun scoring a goal.
So I take it you were looking forward to going back in goal after this?
Yeah. Well, it was a position where I was getting paid to play, so it made sense to do that. But it was good to have people like Alex Ferguson and Archie Knox as teachers, as coaches, to put us in our sort of early start in football.
And when you were first spotted by Aberdeen, how did that come about?
Well, as I say, I lived in the far north of Scotland, about 200 miles away from Aberdeen, and I used to play in the select team, the North of Scotland Select, and we played against Aberdeen schools. And I think on the day we got beat 8-0, but I was told after the game that it could have been 18-0, and obviously made a number of saves on the day, and then the scouts from Aberdeen were at the game as well, and they asked me to come down to Pittodrie for the school holidays to have a trial. Myself and a lad called Eric Black, we lived close in the north of Scotland, and we both went down on the same week, and we both came back as schoolboys for Aberdeen. So every school holiday after that we went down to Aberdeen for coaching, for games, before we finally signed professional or apprentice forms at 16. So that was 2 years as schoolboy for Aberdeen, so it was a great experience, and sort of set us up for our professional career. And
when you were at Aberdeen, you worked under a certain Sir Alex Ferguson. Did you know that he'd go on to be one of the great managers, and what was it like to work under him?
Well, it was only Alex Ferguson when we first started at Aberdeen, and it was evident that he was very passionate, very committed, and very focused in the job that he wanted to do. And his first job was to get Aberdeen to the top of the tree in Scottish football. He did that very quickly. I think he took on his job at Aberdeen in 1978-79, and within 2 years, or within 1 year, Aberdeen won the league, and then within 2 years they were winning the league and the cup and multiple trophies. And then in 1983, I suppose his finest pinnacle as manager of Aberdeen was beating Real Madrid in the Cup Winners' Cup final, as it was called then, in Gothenburg, and I was very fortunate to be part of that squad and number 2 goalkeeper to Jim Leighton, and I think then everybody knew that he was a manager capable of winning the big trophies. As I say, he was focused and committed and passionate, but when a club like Manchester United come knocking on the door, it's very difficult to turn down, and I know that the Aberdeen chairman at the time, Dick Donald, fought tooth and nail to keep Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen at the time, but the lure of Man United was too big, and as soon as he went there, well, I actually left to go to Norwich in the October of '86. Alex Ferguson went in the November of '86, and my second game for Norwich City was against Manchester United at Carrow Road. We drew 0-0. I was given the man of the match champagne, and he was shouting and swearing at me, even though we'd known each other well for 10 years previous to that. He was very passionate about his new club, and although it took him a few years to turn it round and get it in the way that he wanted it, there was no doubt that once he won his first trophy, we'd go on to win many more.
And including you, there's been a lot of managers well, players that have gone on to management like Alex McLeish, Gordon Strachan, as well as a lot of Man United players. Do you reckon there's a reason to that, or is there a Fergie effect?
There is a Fergie effect in terms of when you're a young player. We used to be sent to a lot of coaching courses. In Scotland there's a place called Largs, which was where the Scottish FA put on their coaching courses for senior players who were going to the end of their career, managers who wanted to get more experience in coaching. And we used to go down as young players to be guinea pigs and to be moved around in different training sessions. So after maybe one or two visits like that, Alex advised us to go in and do our own coaching badges. So at a very young age, I think at the age of 23, probably got my first coaching certificate, and a number of the other Aberdeen players, Eric Black, Neil Cooper, who were my age at the time, the same age, went on these courses with Alex McLeish, William Miller, Gordon Strachan. Mark McGee went into management as well, Billy Stark, who is currently the Scotland under-21 manager. And you mentioned the fact that when he came to United, it's had the same effect on the players there. And it is, you learn from the master, and you're hopeful that you can put a few of those tricks into practice. It works for some and it doesn't work for others. And
although you didn't play in the two games, what was it like to be involved in a team that won 2 European trophies?
Well, I mean, the Aberdeen was sort of provincial club, even in Scotland at the time. So when the likes of Bayern Munich or Real Madrid or the more established teams of Europe drew against Aberdeen, I think they certainly took them too lightly. And Aberdeen went in there, with no big expectations, but with the knowledge that if they played to the best of their ability with the players that we had in the team, we could achieve a result. And that was something that Alex Ferguson made us believe. Not to be part of the team was very frustrating because they were obviously very successful at the time. But to be part of the squad that was travelling all over Europe, winning Cup Winners' Cup, the European Super Cup against Hamburg, was a great experience and something that I took into my professional career at Norwich City, and it helped me greatly when Norwich City qualified for Europe.
And you didn't play that many times over your 6 years at Aberdeen. Do you think that not playing regularly was frustrating, or was it good to play with the best players around at the time?
Well, I was training and playing with the best players in Scotland, and I was also the Scotland under-21 goalkeeper. I was learning from Scotland's #1 goalkeeper, so Jim Layton and I had a great relationship, both professionally and off the field. We did a lot together. We played golf, we had meals out together. So we had a great relationship, but we worked really hard together. And even though I didn't play that many games for Aberdeen, it was a great learning time for me. Watching a team prepare for the highest level. Obviously, there came a time when I was 22 that I felt that I needed to move away from Aberdeen to get my own opportunities at #1. Alex Ferguson asked me to stay on for 1 more year, and then he would help me find a club. And he was true to his word. I stayed another year. Probably played most of my games in the final year as well. I think I played 11 games in my final year at Aberdeen. He did ask me if I was sure I wanted to leave. I still don't know to this day whether he meant that he would take me to Manchester United when he was going the month after, or he knew that Jim Layton would move on and then there would be a chance for me at Aberdeen. But I made the decision to move to Norwich City, which, as I say, Alex Ferguson helped me with. He organised Ken Brown, the manager of Norwich City at the time, to come and watch me. He recommended me very highly. Even sorted out my first contract for me. So I've got a lot to thank him for, and it was a great time for me at Aberdeen, great memories. And as I say, with the likes of Twitter and reunions, people looking back and celebrating the great days of Aberdeen and Scottish football, it's always nice to be remembered in that way.
And you joined Norwich in '86. and you finished 5th in your first career with the club.
Yeah.
How important was it to get off to the right start?
Very important, because I was a Scottish goalkeeper, and Jimmy Greaves and Ian St John used to sit in their Saturday morning show, and obviously Ian St John was a true Scotsman and protected Scottish goalkeepers in the best way he could, but Jimmy Greaves was always there if he'd seen any mistakes on television during the week, or they'd always be featured in the programme or mentioned in the programme. So there was a little bit of pressure coming down as a young Scottish goalkeeper, but I was joining a club, Norwich City, who'd just been promoted from Division 2, as it was in the time, into League 1, which the top league was called, and they surprised a lot of people. I joined in October, went straight into the team, and we had a great run of games, and we finished 5th that season, which was very important to me, because Alec Ferguson said to me, he said, make sure you set your sights high when you move to England. He said to me that I was a top 6 goalkeeper. I don't think he meant a top 6 goalkeeper with Norwich City. He might have meant with the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, teams that were flying high at that time, and he probably didn't expect Norwich City to be successful as they were in the following year. So he was right in what he said. As a top 6 goalkeeper, because we finished 5th in the first year, and then obviously in preceding seasons we achieved greater heights as well.
And in '92, the new Premiership format started. What was the change like, and how did it feel to be a part of that?
I think the change was the exposure, the press interest, obviously more TV cameras turning up at grounds, the change of fixtures from Saturdays to Monday nights, to Sunday afternoons. There was a lot of that at the beginning. The razzmatazz, I suppose, that came with it all. There was every Monday night live game. They had massive razzmatazz build up to the games, and again we had a great season. We had a great start that year. I think we were 10 points clear at one stage in December, going to Old Trafford, and had we won that game, it might have given us a great platform to go on and achieve even greater things than we actually did. But Man United beat us 1-0 that game, and they clawed the gap back. But we sort of pushed them all the way to the final stages, and were unfortunate, probably with the depth of squad that we had, that injuries and suspensions probably cost us more than it did other teams.
And as things were looking good on the field, your daughter Francesca was diagnosed with leukemia at just the age of 2, and sadly passed away in the autumn of '92. Firstly, was there ever a point when you were considered taking a break or retiring?
It was a difficult time, but at the same time, Francesca went through a lot with her treatment. I juggled things between taking her to hospitals and football training, and obviously preparing for the matches on Saturdays, but it worked well. Mike Walker was obviously very sympathetic to the situation, as was John Dean, who was the first team coach at the time, and we did special training sessions in afternoons or early in the morning, just to make sure that the fitness levels were good, and we managed to continue to achieve good results. So it didn't interfere with anything. It just made it a little bit more hectic. But obviously the pressure of Francesca's illness and the fact that she passed away, put a burden on the family. Obviously my wife Susan, it was our first child. But for me, football was a great release. It was a great way of getting out on a football pitch and forgetting about the strains and the pressures of family life, and it certainly helped me through the whole scenario, and we felt that by not playing we would let Francesca down, because she used to come to games, she used to watch me play, she loved coming to the home matches and playing with other children. So we just thought that the best thing for me to do would be to get back out on the pitch, and I'm obviously delighted to this day that we made that decision, because had we gone the other way and decided to have a break, we don't know where we could have ended up. But certainly, that season, We started a charity very quickly the following year with great support from not only my teammates but from clubs across the country in support of doing charity events or donating things for auctions. So the football industry really got behind it. So I think for me that was pleasing and was a way of helping me get over it.
And did what happened make you think about your life in general and football differently?
Well, yeah, it's certainly life changing. Thought provoking. There's more to life than just football, and that was evident throughout the whole probably year that we were going for treatment before she passed away. So yeah, it freed up a lot of pressure, which sometimes people are under. But ultimately, it's probably one of the worst things that can happen to anyone is losing a child. And Susan and I obviously have more children. Francesca had a bigger sister in Melissa, and then obviously Angus has come along as well. So you have to refocus and help those young people move on in their life as well. And as parents, that's what we did. We went back out the next day, and Melissa was obviously our priority, but Francesca was never far away in our thoughts, and she still is to this day. Over 20 years later.
And after she passed away, you played just days later against QPR. Was that your way of dealing with what happened, and how much did it mean having the fans on your side?
Yeah, it was a big sort of debt of gratitude from the fans, or to the fans, and the fans' reaction was incredible. Not only from Norwich City fans, but from QPR fans. We played QPR on the day. There was a number of players on the QPR side, including Ian Holloway and Les Ferdinand, who at the time had young children of their own, and were sympathetic to everything. But on the pitch, you've 90 minutes then to go out and do your job, and thankfully at the end of that we came off with a victory. So it was a great way to dedicate the return to Francesca. But it was also nice that the fans had special thoughts and letters of support, and as I say, supported the charity for many years to come after that. So delighted that it turned out the way it did.
And that season, as you said, you were top by some distance, but ended up finishing third. Do you feel that maybe that was a chance missed, winning the title that season? And did you ever expect to achieve what you did with European football as well at Norwich?
Well, I think that would be Norwich City's best ever chance of winning the Premier League. I don't think, unless somebody comes in with untold amounts of money, investment in the team, infrastructure at the club, it was our chance then to do it. But Alec Ferguson was the manager of Manchester United, Ron Atkinson was the manager of Aston Villa, and we had a smaller squad than both those clubs, and I think that was probably one of the things that went against us. But those other clubs had good experience as well of international players playing for the team, used to the pressures of being at the top of a league or challenging for a trophy, whereas we probably had that inexperience and we just let ourselves down with 5 games to go. We didn't have a great run of results at the end, and Manchester United, probably that was the start of their control of British football. They won all their games, nobody could touch them, and it was just that ruthlessness at the end that we were lacking. And unfortunately, we never got another opportunity to get to those levels. The season after, obviously we qualified for Europe, which was a great experience. Beating Vitesse Arnhem in the first game of European football at Carrow Road, drawing the second game, so we went through to draw Bayern Munich, and then the two great games we had against those at the Olympic Stadium and Carrow Road, and then finally to go out against Inter Milan, who I believe only won the trophy that year anyway, playing against the likes of Dennis Bergkamp and Walter Zenga, who's the goalkeeper, Ruben Sosa, great international stars. It was a great experience, and one that nobody can take away from myself or any of the Norwich City players in the squad at the time. So the fact that we finished third, obviously gave us that opportunity, and we again, we have memories of 20 years since Munich just passed. The Norwich City fans, have great memories of that, and apart from more recent wins of championships and get promotion to the Premier League, that's still a big part of Norwich City's history.
And you mentioned the games against Munich. Just talk us through that night at the Olympic Stadium.
Well, it was a surreal night, really. I mean, we went there the day before, and we went to training the night before. A lot of the players had never trained in a stadium like that. The five-a-side match at the end of training lasted longer. I think they were even flicking off the floodlights at one stage to try and get us out of the stadium. Everyone just enjoyed being there, and we were obviously desperate to make it a success. And the next night we went out on the pitch, and we were set up to keep the game tight, not to concede too much space, not to probably give too many goals away, and hope that we still had a chance in the second leg. And then, lo and behold, we go and score 2 goals in the first 20 minutes and change the course of the game. And I think we had a couple of other opportunities in the match, but for the rest of the game, then we were penned in by Bayern Munich, and a great defensive performance. And I managed to pull off a few saves, and we got out of the Olympic Stadium as 2-1 victors. And up until recently, it was only Arsenal who went there and stole our mantle of being the only British club to win in Munich. They actually won in the new stadium, the Allianz Arena. We're the only British team to have won in the Olympic Stadium, and obviously they moved stadium now, so we've still got a bit of a record there to keep. And
you went through, so that's the difference as well, I suppose.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we went through after a 1-1 draw at Carrow Road. A tough game against them again. I think they came to Carrow Road and scored after 4 minutes, which evened the scores up at the time. We'd scored 2 away goals, but we got a goal back in the second half through Jerry Goss, and it made it a tense finish. And thankfully the fans were right behind us at Carrow Road, and saw us through to the next round.
And there were some big characters in that Norwich dressing room. What was it like being a part of that? Of it all?
Well, yeah, it was great being, as you say, great characters in there. A lot of us had grown up together. When I joined the club in '86, and the likes of Mark Bowen, Ian Crook, Ian Butterworth, Ian Culverhouse, we'd all joined around the same time, and that was I suppose the backbone of the team that saw us right through to '93, and those great European nights. And younger players like Will Fox had come through, Chris Sutton had come through the ranks. People bought into the club like Mark Robbins, Rob Newman came in and played in that game, Spencer Pryor. So there was lots of experience in there, and people with, we'd grown up together, we were friends, with families who'd mixed well together. So it was a great camaraderie about Norwich City at the time, and that helped us with all of our success.
Okay, and you left Norwich in '98. Do you feel you left at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, I was getting older in my career. I was 35, and Mike Walker was looking to play a younger team. I think the finances at Norwich City at the time as well were and I was one of the highest paid players. So again, I think behind the scene there was a pressure to reduce the wage bill, and I left the club on my own wishes. I went to Hibernian, where my old Aberdeen teammate Alec McLeish was the manager, and enjoyed my football for 12 games. Unfortunately, Hibernian were at the bottom of the league at the time, but the plan was to go there for 2 years and help the club back into the Premier League. So after 12 games, To be offered a 2-year contract was great with Hibernian, but unfortunately I broke my leg in the first week of pre-season training in '98, and never played first team football again. And in March '99, through consideration with the doctors, decided to retire from the game.
And as you said, you were managed by Alex McLeish while you were at Hibs. Was it weird being managed by someone that you'd played with?
It was, but I knew Alex's character. I knew what type of person he was. He was a very good coach, very good manager. I'd been in coaching sessions and coaching courses with him. And obviously I was an experienced goalie. I was 35 myself, so I was only a few years younger than him. So I think he used my experience in the best way possible as well, with a lot of young players at the club at the time. And it was no coincidence that he went on to manage at the highest level in Scottish football with Rangers, winning trophies and medals with them. Obviously managed at international level, and more recently in the Premier League. And it was no surprise that he is considered as one of the top managers that has come out of Scotland.
Okay. And as you just mentioned about breaking your leg as well, how long do you think you could have played if that didn't happen?
Well, I actually broke my leg twice. So I broke my leg in 1994 when at Nottingham Forest. We were 7th in the Premier League at the time, and at the end of that season, unfortunately, Norwich got relegated in 94-95 season. So I broke my leg then. Came back from that quite successfully. Played under Martin O'Neill, Karen Megson, Mike Walker again as managers. And then went to Hibernian. So I think it was the second leg break definitely on top of the first leg break. It was going to be difficult to continue to play at the highest level. And obviously when the doctor said that this is not going to get any better, it was an easy decision. And although I'd played only 12 games for Hibs, and they were very memorable occasions. We had a clean sheet at Celtic Park when Celtic were fighting for the league in front of 60,000 people, playing at Ibrox, and being one of the goalkeepers who, well, I think the record has not been very good for the last 10-15 years of winning against Hearts after John Robertson had scored. So great memories of the time of all my football clubs, although I say 12 games at Hibs. There's still a lot of people who get in contact and remind me of my time there as well.
And over your career, you made a handful of appearances for Scotland. Was it frustrating being with the squad but never really getting a proper chance to prove yourself?
Yeah, well, I think it was in an era where Scottish goalkeepers were respected. Obviously, I'd come down to England and sort of remove some of the impressions that people had and thoughts on Scottish goalkeepers by helping Norwich City finish 5th, 4th, excuse me, and 3rd in the Premier League. But also coincided with Jim Leighton, who was my #1 keeper at Aberdeen, and also the emergence of Andy Gorham. And if it wasn't for those two guys, I would have had over 50 caps for Scotland, I reckon. I was always sort of a backup, either a number 2 or a number 3. Probably one of the great memories of my time with Scotland was being included in the World Cup squad that went to Italy in '90. But to have played 6 games for your country, my mum and dad came to my first game against Egypt at Pataudry. 20 odd family and friends, so to be standing there singing the national anthem in front of them, it was a very proud moment. So again, it's something that you achieve in your football career and nobody can take it away from you.
And you talked about the memories of playing for Scotland. There's a story about you and Roberto Baggio. Could you just tell us about that?
Yeah, one of my games was against Italy in the Olympic Stadium in Rome. After the game, after a 3-1 defeat, unfortunately, I swapped goalkeeping tops with Pagluca, who was the Italian goalkeeper at the time. And then afterwards I spotted an opportunity as we were getting onto the team buses. Roberto Baggio, I could see, was getting onto the Italian bus and I was on mine, and I ran out and got got him to the front of the bus and asked if he wanted to exchange ponytails. I spotted a long hairstyle at the time, and he had slightly longer and slightly bushier hairstyle. And he went into his bag and took out a couple of his hair bands, and I proceeded to wear them in the Premier League games that came up after that. So one of the unusual swaps in football history, but one that was quite funny.
Okay, and then after your career, after you retired, you literally took on every role at Norwich. Did it working behind the scenes help you when you eventually became number one?
I'm sure it did, and I was very lucky enough to be asked to come back to Norwich City and work in a capacity within the commercial department. Representing the club in the community. It was probably very, very forward thinking of Norwich City at the time. A lot of football clubs do it now with former players, make them ambassadors or presidents or the like. But Norwich City, thought about this back in the 90s, and my role was to promote the club in the community and with the local businesses, and also work on a match day, hosting sponsors. I reintroduced the ex-players coming back to the club, which had not happened for a long while. And I used their fame and experience in Norwich City as well, and really got a good backroom team behind the scenes, and worked with the managers at the time. Nigel Worthington was Ryan Hamilton, Bruce Rioch, all great to work with. And very helpful to the commercial department. Understood the needs for the players to integrate with the community. So that was great to be involved in that. Then Peter Grant took on the manager's job, invited me back to the football department to work as his club liaison, and I worked ironically speaking with football agents. Other managers, other clubs, worked very closely with the chief scouts in organising players coming into the club, and really used my office experience in the commercial department, in the football department as well. So and then Glenn Roeder came in as manager, and he made me head of player recruitment, and again. I was out watching games, out watching players, recommending players to the manager, obviously working within his budget at the time. Worked very closely with him, ended up being his goalkeeping coach as well for 6 months. So gaining great experiences all the way along, and then ironically, when Glenn was asked to leave the club, I was given the opportunity to look after the team against Barnsley as caretaker manager. We won the game 4-0. I knew the club were recruiting a new manager very quickly the next week, and I decided, after chatting with family and friends and ex-teammates and people who I'd want to work in a backroom with me, a backroom team, that I'd like to take the job on. And it was a great experience, apart from ending up being relegated. I think took on a club that were sitting at the bottom end of the championship at the time. There were still 19 games remaining that season, and we got off to a good start. Victories, draws, had a 5 or 6 game unbeaten run, and then a couple of defeats. And then with a bad end to the season, so unfortunately the bad end to the season was the one that contributed us to being relegated, and disappointment obviously, having worked, played, committed myself to Norwich City for many years to be the manager that took them down to League One. So that's something unfortunately that is in the history books. But for the width of a post, a refereeing decision, a couple of players that unfortunately got injured. We should have stayed in the championship that year, but it was a great experience. Carried on the job the following year, following season. Managed to sign 12 players, and then unfortunately, after a very good pre-season, our first home game of the season against Colchester, we got beat 7-1, and it went rather wrong. So we followed that up with a 4-0 victory against Yeovil in the League Cup. But there was a new chairman at the club, a new chief executive had come in during the summer, and they decided a change was needed, and introduced Paul Lambert as manager. So it was great to see Norwich City go on and win the league that year. That was our plan, was to win the league with the number of players that we brought in, the budget that we had. We were always, that was the ambition, to get back to the championship as quickly. But for them to do back-to-back promotions was absolutely fantastic, and I'm delighted that Norwich City are still sitting in the Premier League to this day.
And you talked about the 7-1 defeat to Colchester. Do you feel that you should have got more time after that result? I know you played the game against Yeovil afterwards, but for the rest...
possibly. It is one of those things that it's an embarrassing result, and a more frequent result these days. Teams are seem to be getting beat by heavier results, but I can understand the reasons why the board, or certainly the chairman and the chief executive, wanted to make the change, and I can't really argue with it, because on that change they achieved success and got back to the Premier League. So obviously disappointed with the way it happened and the way I was treated, but you have to move on in life, and I have, and Norwich City have, and as I say, I'm delighted that they're doing so well in the Premier League.
And yeah, you talked about their back-to-back promotions. Do you believe that you could have achieved that if you were still manager?
Difficult to do that. I would have hoped to. I think that's probably one of the answers. Given the support of the directors, you would have built up the squads, in a way that you could have got them playing good football, ambitious, hard to beat. All things that Paul Lambert managed to achieve, and it's difficult to say, but unfortunately that opportunity wasn't given to me, wasn't followed through. So all I say is well done to Norwich City, and I hope even at the end of this season, they end up getting enough points to stay in the Premier League. And
as a Birmingham City fan myself, they've got quite a lot of links with Norwich at the moment. You gave Tom Adeyemi his debut.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing very well for Birmingham at the moment, and how far do you think he can go?
Yeah, Tom can go wherever he wants in the game. His attitude is refreshing. He's a great athlete, a man of many other talents, of just not only being a football player but being very academic, being a great sportsman, cricket and other sports. But obviously his athleticism, his physique in the modern game will help him go a long way, and if he can steer away from injuries, I'm sure that he'll be a Premier League player, whether that be with Birmingham City or he's given the opportunity elsewhere. But certainly he's got all the tools that you need in the modern game to be successful. But yeah, I mean, Tom was refreshing when he went into the team, and it's good to see him still doing well in his career. Yeah, I think they've definitely missed him in the last few weeks since he's been injured. But in not this summer but the summer before, Chris Hughton took charge. He came in from Birmingham. How do you think he's done, and would you say he's under pressure at the moment? Well, all managers are under pressure depending on the sequence of results they get, and Chris's recent results haven't been as consistent as the same period last year. Norwich City were on a 10-game unbeaten run last year, which really cemented their place in the Premier League. This year, it's a little been more stop-start. Win one, lose one, draw one. Whereas the season before they were more consistent. But they had a great victory last weekend and against Hull. they'll be expecting to win, as many home games against their sort of relegation challengers as they can, and the home form is going to be crucial for them, and hopefully that they will see enough points. Chris Hughton's a great football man. I've met him on many occasions, and he's a gentleman, and somebody you want to see be successful in football.
And then he this summer he signed Nathan Redmond from Birmingham. How do you think he's done so far?
So far, he's been in and out of the side, but he's certainly got qualities of a Premier League player. His pace, his electric, he's exciting when he runs at players. Probably just his final cross, his final finish is probably something that he needs to continue to work on. And I'm sure that Chris Hughton and Paul Trollope, Colin Calderwood, the rest of the coaching staff down there will be working hard with him. I know that's something that they do as coaches. They do individual practices as well, and that's something that a player like Nathan Redmond will benefit from. And he just needs to get that consistent level now that we'll see him not only do well for Norwich City, but potentially get into the England squad.
There's a funny story about that actually. Jerry Gill, who is now the Norwich scout.
Yeah.
I was at a Q&A with him and he was in Redditch, and he announced, when they asked him what he did, that he was a Norwich scout working in the Midlands an hour after the club had announced that they'd accepted an offer for Redmond from Norwich. So it didn't go down too well, that.
I can imagine.
But as you talked about earlier, you do a lot of charity work for the Leukemia Appeal. Could you just talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's something we set up after Francesca passed away, and the Bryan Gunn Appeal, which raised over £1 million. There've been projects put in place, community sisters, funding for equipment at the local hospitals, parent support telephone lines. It's a very difficult time for parents when they find out about the child being ill. So we set up a support line which covers that, and really just trying to support as many people through the horrific illness that leukemia is. And I suppose the biggest testimony would be that one day we find a cure through one of the projects that we set up, and that would be the biggest testimony to Francesca that we could ever hope for.
And your profile in the game, do you think that's helped with the amount of money you've raised for the?
Well, yeah, I mean, being local to Norwich for over 20 odd years, certainly in the area, that helped. But as I say, when we approached clubs nationally to support us, they were only too happy to do that. So I think, the Norwich City, the profile of myself playing international football. Obviously there's a lot of media attention around the time as well, so it all helped to raise the profile for leukemia. And as I say, the testimony would be if we do find a cure in the not too distant future that can be linked to one of the projects that we put together.
Okay, and if we look to the future, would you be interested in working in coaching or management again, and have you applied or been asked to get another job?
Good question, but I mean at the moment I'm happy in my role at Triple S. So it's given me an opportunity to work in a football environment, albeit working on the side of the football agent as opposed to the football club. I still link in with football clubs on a daily basis. To go to a game, to attend a game, you still have to speak to club secretaries. We have a lot of players here who are attached to football clubs that I go and watch, make sure they're still at the standard that they set out at the beginning of their contract, and then we're always on the lookout for more players as well. So it's a contacts game really, football. You need to have contacts at every level, whether that be from the scouting level right up to the chairman and the chief executive. And if you've been involved in football at a high level, you'll have come across those type of people, you'll meet up with those type of people, obviously managers. I'm a member of the League Managers Association, former member of the PFA, so I understand the game, and but I'm enjoying the role I'm doing at the moment. Gives me an opportunity to watch my son Angus, who's developing as a young goalkeeper at Manchester City. It gives me an opportunity to go and watch a lot of youth football, but also international football as well. I was recently over in Munich watching Manchester City under-19s play Bayern Munich in the afternoon, and then watched the senior match in the Champions League in the evening. So it's given me an opportunity to travel. Angus and I went to Doha at Christmas time when he was selected for Iker Casillas and an Aspire Academy goalkeeping summit. So there was 20 goalkeepers from all over the world there, and I was given the opportunity to travel and see the facilities they've got in place there, which will obviously be part of the World Cup calendar in 2022. So the role I'm in at the moment is exciting, and it's given me the opportunity to keep involved in football.
Okay, and as you said about your sons at Man City, how far do you think you can go? Because being at that CS academy, that must have been some achievement already.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's obviously came through the structure at Norwich City, which is a very good structure, and recently, last year, we saw them win the FA Youth Cup, and that was actually the team that Angus was attached to, was playing with. His ex-teammates there did a fantastic job winning that. So he decided to move on to Manchester City. It was a great opportunity for him to join a club with ambition. And the finances to compete at the top level, at the highest level. It's something he's developing now. He's only 17. Actually, he's 18 this week. So it's great that he can learn in the same environment as England's number one, Joe Hart, obviously Costel Pantelion, Richard Wright. And Ian Lawler and Angus are the next goalkeepers behind that. So they're at a club which are ambitious, are successful, are competitive in world football. So I think that he's in a good place at the moment. He's highly regarded as England prospect. It was actually England who chose him to go to Qatar, to Doha, to compete in the Iker Casillas summit. So he's got a great opportunity and a great chance of developing, but he needs to keep focused. He needs to keep clear of injury. He needs to work really hard at his game, and I'm sure he has that. He's got a great mentality, and he's got a great passion for the game. So I hope that he can go all the way.
And how much advice have you given him?
I tend to give him advice, but obviously he relies on the goalkeeping coaches at Manchester City, and to have too many different voices in his head is something that I disagree with. So I give him advice when he needs it. If I spot anything in a game, I mention it, but it's not constant. Hopefully it's good advice, it's proper advice, it's experience. Having been through a lot of what he's gone through myself, hopefully it'll be the right advice, and it'll be up to him to decide who he actually listens to. But I think he understands that I've got a good knowledge of the game, and he's receptive to that.
And a moment which must have been very disappointing for you. Angus picked England over Scotland. How disappointed were you?
Fairly disappointed, but not giving up on the opportunity yet. I mean, he has played for England at under 16, under 17, under 18 level, and I think until under 21 in a championship match, you can still change allegiances or change your country. So who knows? He might decide in the near future to do that. But he enjoys his football. He's very proud to be representing England, and obviously he was born in Norwich. I tried my best by naming him Angus, but he still decided to stick with the three lines at the moment. But I'll be trying to get him onto that Scotland badge up until the day he makes his sort of full international debut.
And just the last thing to talk about, what was this thing about trying to headbutt the bar?
I think it was just something I picked up as a youngster, running towards the goal, just maybe nodding my head towards it. When I went to Norwich City, obviously big crowds behind each of the goals at Norwich City, both home ends, and they just picked up on it. They made a sort of a little bit of a theme of it, roaring me on to the goal mouth, and then I'd make out as if it was a headbutt. And thankfully, I only headbutted it once. I wouldn't advise any young goalkeeper or any senior goalkeeper to actually headbutt the crossbar. It's made of metal. I actually only clipped it the day I touched it, and I had stars in floating around in my head for the next hour. So it's not something to recommend to goalkeepers to do, but it certainly got the fans up for the game, and something I'm remembered for.
Okay, well, I'd just like to say thanks for your time, and we're going to put the podcast on the website after, so...
No problem, thank you.